Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they had to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I am so glad that you can join us today. And this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and many other podcast platforms. And you can also go to womenentrepreneursecrets.com if you want to see a list of the platforms and subscribe to your favorites. And also on that site, you'll find information and posts of interest to women business owners. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, then you can get information there as well for that. So I hope that you will check that out. And also, if you are on Apple Podcasts, it'd be great if you could take a few moments to just scroll down and leave feedback or a review of the show, because of that always helps the show to be found by more listeners. So I hope you'll take a moment to do that if you've enjoyed what you've heard. So we're going to get started with my guest today. Emily Mills is the award-winning founder of How She Hustles, a network with 18,000 social media followers that reaches diverse women through sold-out events and digital content. And for 10 years, her events in Toronto have focused on entrepreneurship and leadership, attracting CEOs to Olympians. And Emily created the digital photo series, Her Story in Black, featuring 150 inspiring Black women that earned national media coverage with CBC, including a 1-hour TV documentary. And she launched Startup and Slay, a 6-part digital video series featuring diverse women entrepreneurs from British Columbia to Nova Scotia. And a frequent public speaker and emerging leader to watch, Emily also held a roundtable with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about entrepreneurship and economic opportunities for Black women in 2019. And she was invited to meet First Lady Michelle Obama in Toronto and was proud to host 2 tables of diverse women and mentees during a recent Canadian visit by President Barack Obama. Emily was named to Canada's Most Powerful Women Top 100 list by Women's Executive Network, the 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women list, and was honored as a Ryerson University Alumni of Distinction. So welcome to the show, Emily. Really glad to have you.
Well, thank you so much, Deborah. I'm really excited to be here, and amazing to see just the lineup of women you've had on your show. So I'm excited to be here and to keep listening.
Well, thank you so much. And that was one of those things I just started just because I wanted to find out who was out here,
Yes.
who was in business. And at that time, it was still kind of on the cusp of people really taking entrepreneurship really seriously. I think not that people weren't doing it, but it became a bigger thing after a while. And I was really glad to have the opportunity to meet so many people, and I certainly still am today. So, Emily, before we really get into the conversation, could you please share with everyone how you got started and in what you're doing?
Well, thank you. It was an accident, really. I had no plans to become an entrepreneur, but as they always say, we plan and life happens, right? At the time, I wasn't married, didn't have any kids, and I was working in marketing and communications and media relations for a nonprofit in Toronto, Canada. And I just wanted, I was working so hard on these projects. I was going to all of these events where there were pretty senior, corporately connected women talking about leadership, diversity, and inclusion. And as I went to these events, I just looked around and I thought, okay, where are the people like me? Where are the other young Black women who are on the track to leadership or are already leading in their own way, and who are very active on social media, who may not have corporate ties, and just didn't see them. So posted something on Facebook 4 a.m. one morning, and I just said, look, I'm looking for other women who hustle, not specifically Black women, just other women who hustle, who came from, who were like me and not like me. And people responded instantly and said, yeah, I'm hustling too. I'm working on my passion project, or trying to, build up my side hustle, or here's what I'm trying to do in the corporate world. And so from there, I just said, okay, anybody want to meet up for brunch? Let's talk about what we're doing. And that was our very first event in May of 2010. And it was 50 of us women having brunch on the rooftop of a restaurant in Toronto. And once people saw the pictures, they said, okay, when's the next one? And there wasn't one planned, but 10 years later, we've now had over almost 25 sold out events with, up to 400 people at once. We've got an incredibly supportive virtual community. We've, as you mentioned, created some awesome digital projects, and yeah, it's really humbling to see how something we stumbled upon has evolved.
I think that happens a lot, particularly with women entrepreneurs, and people I've talked to on the show will say that it maybe wasn't something they were necessarily planning, but they were led, something happened that led them in this other direction, and then there they were, and they found where they felt they really were supposed to be.
Absolutely. That purpose, you go down this path and you're not quite sure where it leads. And then the next thing you know, the momentum, the purpose, the intention, the community, the vibes really just kind of carry you forward. And it's really humbling to look back at how much has happened in this time. And I certainly haven't done it alone.
So when you bring together so many people and you're having events and doing all these things, what do you feel that women, particularly women entrepreneurs, women of color, Black women, what do you think that they are really looking for right now in terms of business or just growing as people? What do you think they're really looking forward to, or what they're reaching for?
Many of us are looking for that community. We're looking for a community that reflects us, people who we can relate to, people who understand the uniqueness and also the commonality of our walk. What I found with a lot of my events, when we're especially the ones focused on entrepreneurship, is that people don't want to leave their identities and their lived experience behind. And that's what attracts them to How She Hustles. There's lots of events out there and lots of networks out there and lots of, startup resources out there. But it's when you layer the intersectional pieces, when you allow people to come in and talk about what it's also like to be the daughter of immigrants, when, your parents, for example, maybe wanted you to be an engineer or a doctor and you decided to open up your own, t-shirt business, and that wasn't what they had planned. Or when you think about, okay, I need to get, investment from friends and family, but because of your lived experience, it may be very different than some of the other entrepreneurs that are often talked about, because you may be supporting your grandma back home, wherever. When you are talking about going for investment, you may be walking into a room where not only are the investors maybe they look or live nothing like you, but you may also come up against all kinds of barriers. And so I think the women who come to How She Hustles events are looking for spaces where they can just unpack that with people that they understand, come up with some suggestions, some strategies, some inspiration, and really just to feel reflected, like a place where people can be like, I don't have to walk in with all kinds of armor. I can just be my authentic self and unpack it and find a group of other people who can help me along this path.
Right now, of course, we have quarantine and among other things going on. And right now, I know a lot of business owners, particularly small business owners, some are doing quite well. Some haven't really been able to do anything. And there's a lot of people talking about pivoting and this and that. What are your thoughts, or I guess, you recently had an event, was this part of the conversation that people are having right now?
Around pivoting, sure. Absolutely. People have families to feed. I've got a young family here. I've got an incredible husband, and together we are trying to take care of 2 young children. And so, like everyone else around the world, we're trying to figure out how to both keep elements of our previous normal, but also adapt to the new normal. And that's personally and professionally. And in terms of the business, events were my bread and butter for the longest time for How She Hustles, for a decade. And it has been, fortunately, a pretty positive experience so far, adjusting into the digital world, because to be honest with you, we were already there. How She Hustles has been creating content online, whether it's the digital series you mentioned, Her Story in Black, or the other project, Startup and Slay. We've been very active on social from jump. And so fortunately, it hasn't been a hard pivot. I think it's more about doing an increasing emphasis. I think content creation is something that not only I'm working on more, and we already had a head start with some of our projects, but other businesses are looking at that too. They're looking at, how do I market more online to get more customers or more leads? How do I raise my profile more so people know how to find me, and what am I telling people? It's also, how do I create either content or experiences for people online that they're willing to pay for, or that brands are willing to sponsor because they want to be affiliated with what you're putting out into the world. So I think there are a lot of businesses out there who are looking at that piece. I would also say, though, I think a lot of women-led businesses in particular are well positioned to do that, because many of us are already building networks and building communities and are part of communities online already.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And that definitely comes in handy during times like these, that you do have a very strong network. And I know that right now a lot of people may be hesitant in terms of marketing and reaching out, or they may not be sure what to do. And, for those, particularly for those women business owners that may just feel like they don't quite know how they should move forward, or even someone who's saying, I wanted to start a business, but now I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any kind of tips or advice that you give people in this case?
Well, if I may, I would say I would direct people to even check out my YouTube, if that's all right. YouTube.com/HowSheHustles. Not so much for my advice, but as soon as COVID-19 hit and really started to have an impact on the world, through my brand, How She Hustles, we were able to launch a 3-part meetup series, a virtual meetup series. We basically did 3 Instagram lives, and we were able to have multiple experts on them. And in the 3rd episode, we had some brilliant women who are experts in social media, experts in sponsorship and partnership and corporate marketing. Another one was an expert on LinkedIn. And so had these women offer their advice on what people should be doing. So one of them, just on a simple, in very simple terms, is let people know where you're at. So if, for example, you have a brick and mortar store and now you're looking at, an Etsy shop or a Shopify or, any kind of e-commerce, you look at all the social platforms that you're on and make sure that that message is consistent, that you're consistently driving people to that platform. Is it your Google business is updated and letting people know, you have adjusted store hours or you're closed permanently, however, now you're online. How can people reach you? Making sure that that's explicitly clear. Do you have, somebody who's helping you with social media who can respond to queries through your Twitter or your Facebook? So that type of thing. And I think it's also about looking at some of the digital assets that you have. It took me, I'm not trying to say that I have it all together. It took me a long time to get my newsletter up and running. For a long time, I was like, okay, You can find me on social media. But with COVID happening, no, you need to have those consistent and captive audience opportunities to say, this is what I offer, and I'm delivering it right to your inbox. So I think there are some people who are already there, and it's just about keeping that communication, especially in the digital space, very consistent, very clear, and really always having some kind of call to action. And for the people who are thinking of starting for the first time, I think one of the only things I can say is this is actually a great time to throw spaghetti on the wall. And I don't mean make it up. I just mean, if you've had something you've been thinking about for the longest time and you've put in some work and you've got a concept, you've got an idea, why not try it now? Even the biggest, most established organizations and businesses around the world are trying new things. So this isn't the time to be shy. I think it's a perfect time for everyone to try new technology, new approaches, new ideas, and see what happens.
Right. Well, that's great advice. Do you think that a lot of people really haven't been online or haven't been comfortable in this space? Because I guess when you've been online for so long, it seems as though everyone is here. But just seeing some things or reading some things out after the quarantine, it just seemed for a lot of people, maybe a lot of business owners, that this isn't something that they've been comfortable with or they're not used to being on.
That's completely fair, and absolutely. I'm not on every single platform actively. I choose where my tribe is, and I know where my community is, and you can't do everything on every platform. One of the guests on my virtual meetup said, choose the space where your audience is. Choose the space where you think your key customers or potential customers are, and be a rock star there. Put your time and emphasis there. Don't try and be everything to everyone everywhere. And so for me, for example, Instagram is a place that you would get a very good sense of who I am and what I've been up to. Other people, it may be LinkedIn. That's their playground, and that is where you are going to engage with them the most, see the most frequent posts, really get a sense of what their brand is about. So people have to choose, and I think for those who are uncomfortable or feel like they're not a pro in this space, I would say take it one step at a time. Rather than trying to sign up for everything and do everything, pick a particular platform that makes strategic sense for your brand. Where do you think you're going to get the most customers, the most followers, the most support? Where do you think you have a voice or perspective that is going to bring value to that space? And that's a good place to start. And I would also say, as a second piece of advice, and this is me offering up advice based on my own experience and drinking my own humble juice, get help. You cannot be the pro at everything. I can do social media for sure. I know how to run my socials, but I also know I have 2 young kids trying to homeschool during quarantine. I'm taking care of 2 aging parents, and I'm trying to run my network. Like, it's too much. There's no way I could do it. So one of the best things I think that I could do, even though I know it was a sacrifice and something I had to think about carefully, was getting some part-time social media help. Even if it's just for a particular campaign or a particular launch, or just to even help to train you or set up a schedule, get some help instead of trying to learn everything and do everything yourself.
Yes, that's great advice. I think a lot of people think, maybe particularly women, because they're used to taking on so many different things. They think they have to wear every hat.
And I get it. Look, I am guilty of trying to be an octopus as well. But you can't possibly do it all. And I know for me, the approach that I'm taking at this point is, it's a balance, right? You want to have the support, but you also have to make sure you have the revenue and you have the resources to justify the support and to be able to keep that support on your roster. So it's a give and take. So it's something you have to weigh every time. But I look at it this way: even if all I do is bring somebody on board to for something that's a high priority and make sure that after they do what I need them to do and execute, the second part is for them to help to either train me to do the basics myself, or to create workflows or pre-schedule or pre-plan or create a roadmap for what's next. Then I think that my investment is worth it. Even if I can't keep that person forever, whether it's social media or something else, at least I not only got what I needed to get done, but there is a way forward for what I need to get done next.
That's a really great idea, because that way at least you have that framework, so that now you can move forward even if you really can't continue with that person or that wasn't really your intent. You have something and they've come in and they've given you this guidance or given you something you can take and work with.
Absolutely. And that's also great if you're speaking to others who could be, sponsors or investors. I'm not at the investor stage yet, but like sponsors, we've been growing with corporate sponsorship over the last 2 years. And it really goes a long way where you can go to, where you can have a conversation with folks to say, this is where I was, couldn't do all this stuff before. This is where I am. Now I have somebody part-time who's helping me to execute and get up to speed and train me, and they've laid a few blueprint, and this is where I'd like to go next. I have a plan. I have a blueprint. I have a roadmap. I just need the support and the expertise to get it done. And I think that is a great way to look ahead to growth.
Yes, that's, again, wonderful advice. Particularly for those who are looking at some point to be able to reach out to those sponsors and to really have an idea of what they have to prepare so they can do that. So why don't you share a little bit about your network and what you offer to people who join?
Sure. So, it's interesting. We're working. It sounds so wonderful, and it is, but so often, as entrepreneurs, we think that everything has to be perfect. And even 10 years in, I'm still figuring things out, Deborah. So right now with How She Hustles, people can follow us on social. We have some people who have been with us, have attended the first event 10 years ago, and they are still first in line to get tickets for the next event years and years and years later. We had a whole bunch of people online. We had 700 people register for our 10-year virtual celebration, which was basically a 2-hour live stream. And we had people who were joining us for the very first time from everywhere from Australia to Nigeria to Atlanta to Antigua. It was so humbling. Essentially what we offer is, before COVID-19, every quarter we would do an event in Toronto, and it would be an opportunity for people to meet others who are either entrepreneurs / side hustlers, or people who are, in the corporate world moving on up. And so it would be a chance for people, especially young women of color, to get together and meet their peers and say, what are you doing? How can I learn from you? Can we partner together? Can we do business together? What we figured out over the years, because my background is in media and communications, is that more and more having these women come to these events was a great opportunity for them to also get media exposure. So they could, we never really did keynotes per se. It was always either a panel or a fireside chat or that type of thing. And so more and more, the women who we would put on our podiums would start to get featured in newspapers, magazine, on television, on websites. And so we started to see that journalists were starting to come and say, there's something happening here, a story we haven't told, or a business we don't know about, or a voice that we haven't heard. So that started to happen, which was great. And I think the other thing that's been really exciting over the years with How She Hustles is, whether it's through our events or those 2 digital projects you mentioned, Her Story on Black, or Startup and Slay, and we've done others as well, but that we have exclusively, since the beginning, since 2010, hired women, and particularly young women of color, to do the work. And that has been huge. There are many things that I'm humbled have happened, but being able to look back at the legacy of who we've created economic opportunities for. I mean, for example, with the Her Story in Black project, we hired a part-time college student to photograph 150 Black women in 3 photo shoots. And this is, I mean, these women we're talking about probably one of the most well-known singer-songwriters in Canada, photographing her. The only Black female politician, federal politician that we had in office at the time, photographing her. Photographing one of the only young Black women who was an architect working at the major architectural firms in Canada, photographing her. And for this young Black woman who was a part-time college student, what that did for her, not only her self-esteem, her belief in her work, but her ability to then immediately get hired by others who could say, that was your work? For her now to be able to say, this is my fee, this is my portfolio, for her work to be seen on national television, this is the kind of stuff that we do at How She Hustles that makes me really, really proud.
Yes, and that's so powerful, because people often don't see how one thing builds on another, and that's, I guess, really the key to networks, is that so many people can come together, and there could be so many opportunities, and just not just for people already established, but also people coming in who want to learn and with the exposure that they may not get anywhere else. And now, somebody comes in and they've got that opportunity, that now shows up what they can do, and then they make those connections, and then that encourages them to go on, and then at some point they can help someone else.
For sure.
Yeah.
And, like there's a friend of mine, we've been friends for many years, and when she came to the very first How She Hustles event, she didn't have a hustle. She didn't have a job that she wanted to do for herself, and it's been amazing to watch over the years. She had her full-time job working at a restaurant, and then she became, started her, cooking and baking on the side, and then left her full-time job, and then we were able to hire her to cater her very first big catering job. She did 150 women at our How She Hustles Summer Social at the Shopify headquarters in Toronto, and before the end of the night, she said, oh my God, people loved my food so much, I now have enough orders for the rest of the month. And it warmed my heart, because when we had the roundtable with the Prime Minister of Canada, which was a huge honor, I was able to call her and say, I have a really special catering job for you. I can't tell you what it is, but I need you to come with your A game. And so to be able to, she ended up catering that event. And so to be able to be part of that journey, bit by bit, it really shows that the information that we're able to share, the community that we're able to nurture, the information that people are able to access, the collaborations that are able to happen, the exposure we're able to give people, truly has had some impact.
Yes, most definitely. And it's something that can really, as I'm saying, it can really grow beyond one person. It's, as you're saying, it's a network. It's everybody working together.
Yes.
And that's something that is so powerful, and it's probably more than a lot of people realize, because, I mean, sometimes I'm on LinkedIn, and people will want to connect with you, and 5 seconds later they're trying to get you to watch some video.
Hi, nice to meet you. Watch this. Yeah.
What happens to people? They can't connect of some kind.
Yeah.
You don't even know that person or what they may want, what they're looking for, because they may be looking for what you have to offer, or they may be a great connection for you, but you never find out, because that step doesn't happen where the human connection is happening, and that's really where everything is at.
And the art of networking, that's it, right? It's not, and that's something it's been really exciting, and something I really cherish, that people say when they come to a How She Hustles event, it's not it's not card pushing. People don't come there. You're not walking into a room of walking LinkedIn profiles where everybody's like, this is what I do. Let me tell you all the places I've worked and let me see it. Like, it's not that.
Right.
People walk in with energy, authenticity. People just walk in with a different aura about them. And I think, we've had, so even though we're a professional network, I guess you could say that, we're a space where, people are really high caliber. It's been so impressive to see the people who see value in the space, but it's also not an exclusive space. This is not about people sticking their nose up and saying you have to be on the $1 million track in order to come. What people love about it, and what I'm trying to just continue to be consistent with, is whether you are the mom who is starting your cookie business out of your kitchen during your maternity leave, or whether you are somebody who has an office on Bay Street and you are a corporate lawyer with 10 staff and you're billing $500 an hour, you're both entrepreneurs and there's both value to what you do. And that's the energy, and that's my job as the founder, to try and ensure that that space is kept so that when people walk in, everybody has something of value to bring. So when we bring in people, like when we had our summer social, we had like a little networking activity, and it wasn't about, so where do you work and what do you do? It was, okay, what do you do when you face adversity in your job? Or how do you decompress after a difficult day at work? What do you do to market your business? Anybody could answer those questions. Doesn't matter what track you're on, somebody's going to have some insight to offer. And so I want to keep doing that. I think it's worked so organically, and I think has made people want to keep coming back, because people don't just want to see the same people that they already know all the time. In order to keep growing as a business leader, as a person, you've got to be able to talk to all kinds of people and understand all kinds of need and understand your customer, of course, and that's a very particular group of people. But I think it's about being able to be nimble, being able to be relatable, being able to be humble, and being able to be curious. And so hopefully we create environments where people are able to be all of those things and experience all of those things.
Well, it certainly sounds like it to me. So
you got to come up and join us when COVID's over. For sure.
Yeah, that sounds like a very, very positive environment, something that people would really prosper. So, why don't you share with everyone where they can find you and find out more about everything you're doing?
Well, thank you. So howshehustles.com is my website. Redesign coming very soon, but it'll give you a good sense of kind of our journey so far. There's videos on there. There's a list of our events. There's links to photo galleries, etc. Instagram and Twitter. Those are the platforms where I am the most active. My Instagram, you'll get a very good sense of what we've been up to, particularly because in May, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary and we were in this quarantine. We really had a great opportunity to share how She Hustles has impacted women through their own voices. So there are photos and videos and testimonials from women who can tell you how She Hustles has done for them. So that's really exciting. We also have a newsletter on our website. So once a month, you can get details of what we're up to. You can also watch our videos, youtube.com/howshehustles. So I would say those are the best places to find me. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/howshehustlesnetwork, but it's really Instagram, Twitter, and our website are the best places to find us. And of course, if you're ever in Toronto and this quarantine ever ends, you can see if we have an upcoming event.
Wonderful. So how was the transition, I should say, when you started out to, being a wife and mother? How did that go?
Deborah. Life is a hustle. I mean, How She Hustles is not just a name. I feel like it's so appropriate for my life. And I say that with humility. I know that there are women hustling all over the globe, and I am not special in that way. I just think it fits me, and I'm glad that that's the name of my company. So, you know, we had 2 kids pretty close together. They're a year and a half apart. So, you know, when we'd go places, they're like, wait a minute, you have a 6 and a 7-year-old? Yes, we do. So when How She Hustles began, you know, as I said, I was working in media and communications in the nonprofit sector. I wasn't married, didn't have any kids, and that was my life. And then soon after, I transitioned into my corporate communications role. I was working at CBC, which is, I guess in the States, somewhat comparable to NPR, National Public Broadcaster, which is a huge deal here, you know, an iconic institution of Canadiana. And as a young Black woman, it's not easy to break into media, let alone to break into media on the corporate communication side. So did that and was doing How She Hustles on the side for 7.5 years. And then in 2018, after her story in Black, which as you mentioned, went on to do some incredible things, including win awards and create, you know, it became a 1-hour TV documentary. You can watch the trailer on my YouTube channel. When her story in Black really made waves across the country and even got up to the Prime Minister's office, and it really was like a rallying cry for Black women across Canada. At that point, I was married with 2 young kids, and I just thought, there is no way with all this momentum and energy that I can just go back to my day job and my desk. That just the energy was there, and people were like, well, what next? And they were just like cheering and chomping at the bit for the next thing. And so, you know, it took a lot of prayer, a lot of really candid conversations with my husband, who's just been a huge champion of How She Hustles from the start. Even my kids, although they're quite young, you know, they know when mommy has one of her quote unquote ladies events, and they get it. And with my family. And ultimately, I walked in one day and said, it's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. But I really think it's time for me to focus on the thing that is really pulling at my heart, and that's How She Hustles. And I'm really thankful that the organization that I was with, you know, the majority of people really cheered me on, and I was sent off quite well. And they've continued to report on, support, you know, touch base about How She Hustles since then. So it definitely felt like I was shot out of a rocket the first week. I finished my job on a Friday in February, I'll never forget. And by Monday, I was literally meeting with the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff in another city. Things happened that quickly that people were like, tell me about what's next with this thing. So I'm very, very grateful. There have been many sleepless nights. I feel like I have more gray hair. It certainly has not been an easy road. It looks all Instagrammable, but lots of worries. I mean, I've got young children. I left a relatively secure, pensioned, unionized, you've made it job to take this risk. But I have no regrets. I couldn't have imagined what has happened in the last 2 years. And so for that reason, I will always encourage people, if you've got that dream, that passion that will not let you sleep, all you've got to do is ask yourself, would you rather spend the rest of your life doing what you're doing and wondering what if, or take the chance and then know?
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I kind of suspect that after everything that's going on, at some point, that we hopefully find resolutions on a lot of things, that I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of different perspectives about how they want to move forward.
Yes. Yeah. The future of work is completely different. Like the model of what was before, going into the office 9 to 5, like the world has completely changed. And I think that's on the one hand, there are a lot more horses in the race now.
Mm.
On the other hand, for those of us who have already been on the track, what a perfect time to say, all right, I'm kind of used to this. Let's see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's what I think a lot of things are gonna change, and maybe I'm not sure that business or the people, certain people in certain areas aren't really expecting. They think it's just going to go back to whatever they thought normal was, but I don't see it.
No. There's new sheriffs in town, I think.
Yeah.
And it's there's so much for the taking right now. You know, there's this uncertain time has opened up so much possibility, whereas before I think there was a lot of, you know, big player, small player, you know, veteran and like the new kid on the block. But now the playing field has just completely changed. You could be, depending on your business and depending on, you know, who you're connected to and what you're offering, your business could be as powerful as these big established organizations that are bureaucratic and don't know what to do next, because what many of us have on our side is we already know how to work with almost nothing. We already know what it's like to have a very lean team.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, many of us, major overheads. Many of us have to use technology, networks, be innovative, have that mentality of trial and error already. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of us have more of the building blocks to succeed now than we even know.
Right. That's a good point. It really is. And for people to see that, it's very true, because you have to kind of know how to do something with very little or nothing.
That's right.
You know, and a lot of times they have that mindset that you figure, well, I'm just going to do this thing or take this risk and see how that works out. So that I think there's going to definitely be more of that as we go along. And also, I'd like you to share a little bit about Startup and Slay and just let folks know about that.
Yeah, so Startup and Slay, I'm so excited about this project coming back, you know, and I have to shout out, if I may, you know, CIBC is one of the largest financial institutions across Canada, and they were our very first corporate sponsor. And that was big, you know, to be bootstrapping almost for 8 years and just really operating on the support of the community. And to finally have a big institution say, all right, we see what you're doing. We see the value of this community. It's been great. So Startup and Slay, similar to how She Hustles was born. It was me, you know, after I left my corporate job, going to a bunch of startup events, small business events, and I could not believe the lack of diversity and inclusion in some of these spaces. I remember one event in particular I went to. They were talking about finances and where to find investment. And I remember walking in, and the only 2 Black faces that were there aside from mine, one was sweeping the floor and one was serving the coffee. And it was a packed room, like 100 people in downtown Toronto, like known as the most multicultural city in our country. And I just thought, oh, are you kidding me? This is not the Toronto that I know, and this is not a How She Hustles event, clearly. And so after experiencing that a couple of times, I said, okay, enough of this. I want to go to an event where there are women, largely young women from diverse backgrounds, talking about starting their own business. And so Startup and Slay, the event, was born in 2018. We did 2 of those, had 2 sold out events. And when I realized that people were literally carpooling from 4-5 hours away, different cities, different communities, people were just desperate for the content on social media. We couldn't keep up. That's why last year in 2019, I said, okay, we need to do a Startup and Slay digital series. Make the content digital first. Make it available to people first, so that there's not just storytelling and insights and wisdom in a physical event. And so if you're not there, you miss out. No, let's put it online first and allow people to watch videos about these women entrepreneurs. Allow people to read stories about them in terms of web articles. Allow people to hear their stories through the media. Allow people to meet them through an event. And so we did all of those things together last year. That's what Startup and Slay was about. And so this year we hope to do it again. Obviously, because of coronavirus, we cannot travel. We cannot take a video team across Canada and film these women. But we are going to use the technology to tell their stories. We really want to hear from diverse women entrepreneurs who can share stories of how they're starting, how they're sustaining, and how they're scaling up their small businesses during these uncertain economic times. Those are the stories we want to hear from. Are you launching something new? Are you holding on in an innovative way and pivoting? Or have you found a way to do something different and you are soaring even though times are tough? That's the story that we want to hear. And so we are open to any entrepreneur with a small business across Canada. They can go to my website, howshehustles.com/startupandslay. There's a series of questions there. Submit your answers. We have a committee and a team that vets all of them and adjudicates them and makes a decision and selects the stories we think are best. And then we'll have an opportunity to share them in the fall, in October, during Small Business Month. We will do some online content. We're really getting good at those, doing these live meetups. We just used some great technology to essentially do a video stream and do live interviews with people and integrate it with social media so that people can ask questions. Of course, we do our best to get these stories out to the media. And should COVID-19 be over, we'd love to do an event.
Wonderful. That sounds great. That sounds like a fantastic opportunity. Yeah, that really does. And, I hope that listeners will take advantage, those of you who are in Canada will take advantage of that and definitely see if you can participate, because we really definitely need more of that kind of thing to bring people together, particularly if you aren't used to seeing, as you've been saying, used to seeing yourself represented and really want to have that experience and not just be the only one in the room.
For sure.
Feeling like you don't belong there for some reason, or, you can't get to the things you need. So this is really the kind of thing that we definitely need more of, Emily. So, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I just want to ask, do you have any final thoughts to share with us?
First of all, I just want to thank you, Deborah. This has been really cool. It's so neat to connect with other, I am fortunate to be able to get people together, but it's really cool when I get together with other people. So nice to meet you through digital platforms. So thank you for the chance to speak with you. And I would say just for the people who haven't started yet, people often ask me, how did you start, or how did you know you were ready? Truth is, I didn't know I was ready. So for those people who may be listening and are not entrepreneurs now, but are thinking about it, I would say stop thinking and just do. The worst case scenario is it doesn't work out and you try something else. But so many of us spend so long trying to get everything perfect before we leap. It's like the paralyzed by perfection disease. I would wish that whoever's listening to this, even if you're already in business or you're thinking about it, and this is advice that I'm trying to take more myself, stop waiting for everything to be perfect before you leap. And the only other thing I would say is, whether it's How She Hustles or another community, find your tribe. It can be so lonely, overwhelming. Things are changing so quickly. It's easy to just become just buried in work and lose your perspective. So it's so helpful to have a tribe or a community that can give you fresh eyes, fresh ears, fresh ideas, and to just encourage you along the path.
That's great. And I totally agree. Totally agree. That's so needed, so needed. So I'm so happy that you were here to share this information and to really encourage. And, the listeners, I'm sure, will be checking you out and checking out everything that you have to offer, because we definitely need more of people coming together and women coming together and building communities and we need a new paradigm.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. I am so thrilled that we had this chance to chat tonight. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to listening to some of the rest of your episodes.
Yes, thank you. So everyone, I know that you enjoyed this. Please certainly check out Emily's website. All of the links will be in the show notes. So I hope that you will take advantage of that. And once again, it's been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook.com/Women Entrepreneurs and on the website, WomenEntrepreneurSecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.